Off the Hook, airing on offthehooksports.com. Your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. The Off the Hook podcast at offthehooksports.com or Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or wherever you go for your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Off the Hook with Dave Hooker starts now.
Love talking to this guy, Chris Landry of LandryFootball.com, and it's brought to you by Craft Treats. Craft Treats, just click on the adjacent link, and you will be able to make your wallet and pet happy. That is Craft Treats. So we want to talk, Bryan Harsin is the one guy I don't think that'll be at SEC Media Days 2023 as we were there last year. What other coaches might not be present? Because nobody thought that Dan Mullen wasn't going to be at 2022. So things changed pretty quickly with Chris. Some Dave Hooker, again, Craft Treats, whether it comes to situational anxiety for your pet or storm anxiety or whatever the case may be. We've had a lot of that in East Tennessee. Craft Treats, go to this link that is provided and you will be able to save a substantial amount and make your pet and wallet happy. So Bryan Harsin comes in, Chris, and he's got this huge police officer with him, which isn't the first time that I've ever seen that. I have seen that before, maybe once or twice at SEC Media Days, but it is a pretty secure environment at the College Football Hall of Fame. So it looks odd. And then another guy that if he wasn't an undercover agent, he wanted to look like an undercover agent because he did. And I'm just wondering, did Bryan Harsin need protection from the media in order to not get fired before the 2022 season?
I don't know. Did either one of those guys protecting him have a 2x4 with the Yellowwood stamped at the end? For the non-Auburn fan that doesn't know the boosters, there, check that up. Jimmy Rain, Yellowwood owner, big booster, who was the guy spearheading the get rid of Bryan Harsin talk. No, I tell you what, was really kind of embarrassing for that Auburn program because, I don't know that he needed the protection, but boy, he came out didn't he? I did see this, didn't watch it. Saw him came out, and the first thing he said was talked about how there was an effort to trash me and it didn't work. Like, whoa. I mean, yeah, I thought that was real interesting. So I don't know. I tell you what, though, is interesting to your question and to your part. You're so right. And if we're having this conversation last year, there's no way I'm saying Dan Mullen is, you know what, he probably could be gone. As the season got later, you kind of think, oh, what could happen? So I'm going to be wrong because I don't really know that anybody I would say right now is in bad shape other than Bryan. I'm going to go through it real quick. Billy Napier's in his first year. I think Shane Beamer's going to eventually struggle at South Carolina, but he's not going anywhere this year. Kirby got his new deal and not going anywhere. Josh is not going anywhere. Mark Stoops, unless he wants to leave for his alma mater, Iowa, with Kurt Ferentz, or some big job. I mean, he might. Don't think they're going to pull the trigger on Clark Lee, although he's dead man walking in Nashville. I tell you who's going to be in a little bit of trouble eventually is Eli Drinkwitz, because they think that they should win there like big because they did it when they first came in the league. And I think they're going to be – but I don't know that he gets run this year. Saban's there for as long as he wants. Sam Pittman – see, he's going to stay. Brian Kelly's in his first year. Jimbo's fine. I would say that I would expect Mississippi State and Mike Leach to have a good year, but let him have a bad year, and they'll start to get really frustrated and antsy over his stick and and then, of course, Lane Kiffin, if he gets the right job, he'll leave. So that's the whole league. I mean, I don't know that answers the question, but, I mean, I can't really point to anyone, but I would say the guys that would be most interested in watching if they have bad years would be Drinkwitz and Leach, but I'm not predicting that they get run at the end of this year. And then who gets a better job? I mean, I guess it would be Lane or Mark Stoops, but I'm not sure that I can sit there and tell you that I'm confident saying that it's going to happen. So But we're not going to have zero changes. It just doesn't happen that way in this league. And I can't tell you who it's going to be.
No, that's true, and I phrased it in that way on purpose because you mentioned Lane and Saban, so I think those would probably be the second and third most likely to not be at media days in 2023, and it's not because they were fired; it's because at some point Nick Saban is going to retire.
Correct.
But let's specifically look at Lane Kiffin. What kind of job would he take over an Ole Miss? Because he wanted the LSU job, he wanted the Florida job. I was told by you at the time and told by multiple people that he didn't even get a return phone call, basically, from those two schools. I mean, what type of job would he take and leave? Because I know that Ole Miss has a glass ceiling in terms of resources and facilities, but so do a lot of schools.
Well, I tell you, it's interesting because I've always felt like a return to the West Coast was potentially in the cards for Lane. Now, he was interested in the Oregon job. Now, an Oregon situation, because I don't know that they're going to be long for the Pac-12, and I don't necessarily say, for example, would Lane go, would leave for an Arizona State? I think possibly not now, though, with the status of Arizona State in the Pac-12. So I think that because my point is I think it makes it a little bit more selective. He was also interested in Miami. So I think you get an idea where he feels like there are more financial resources. Like, look at Miami. You say, well, the ACC, whatever. But look at what the money they're starting to put into their NIL more than what they're able to put in at Ole Miss. And certainly you can compete in the ACC. I mean, you can compete and win that, and that is that I think so. But again, Miami got a new coach. Miami's not going anywhere anytime soon. Would he be interested in Florida State if that came open? I know he had some interest in Florida State when, the last time but I don't know that's going to come open. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting point because Ole Miss may be a have-nots, but you can win at Ole Miss to a point. But if he wants to win, like compete for a national playoffs, well, if we go to a 12-team playoff, that's doable at Ole Miss. It's not doable making a 14 playoff. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Not unhappy at Ole Miss, but understanding he does that there are limitations at Ole Miss. So I think the answer is really simple. What openings come out where you have more resources to compete nationally than he does at Ole Miss? Any of those places, he'd probably be interested. But we got a ways to go before we figure out if any of those are going to fit the criteria this offseason and whether there is the interest. Because as I mentioned to you, I've given you 4 that he would have left Ole Miss for this past season, but he didn't get offered it, and it wasn't a player in those for different reasons. Not because he's not good enough, but, Miami, Mario Cristobal, one of their own. Oregon wanted to do something different, and it's an interesting question, but why they wouldn't consider Lane, but it just didn't work there. And then, of course, Florida and LSU were never considering him. So I just think it has to mesh right. But that's kind of how I see Lane's situation. Otherwise, he'll stay at Ole Miss, and he'll win, and he'll go to bowl games. But at some point, they'll say, well, why can't you take it to the next level, Dave? Well, because at Ole Miss, there is no next level. I mean, there is no – the next level is if we got a 12-team playoff, and that's a couple of years away, and I don't know if Lane's going to still be there then, but if he is, then I think if you got 4, maybe even 5 at-large teams from the SEC, yeah, you could see an Ole Miss or somebody like that make it. But other than that, that's not what you do at Ole Miss. It's not realistic.
Let's put a 3 grading system on it. 1, Dave, you're insane. 2, yeah, that's possible. Dave, and third is Dave, you're a genius. So hopefully we're not at the lower level. But Nick Saban retires, Mario Cristobal goes to Alabama, and then Lane Kiffin goes to Miami. How crazy would that be if that happened in December, January of this upcoming year?
Well, I don't think it's crazy. I would put it in that middle category. I don't know that Nick is going to step aside this year. I don't have any indication of that. But as you mentioned, I mean, we got to take that on a year-to-year basis with Nick, and only he's going to decide, he and Terry. So let's just say that happens. I don't know where Alabama goes. I do think Mario is definitely somebody they'd like, but what type of year does Mario have? So all right, so he has a good year at Miami when, maybe I don't know, wins big, but successful, and it shows along with his recruiting that things are going up. I think he would be somebody that Alabama would look at. And then what would Miami do? I don't know. I certainly think that Lane would be interested. I'd put it in the middle category, but that's pretty good in the middle category when you consider, three things have got to happen. And I could see that playing out. I don't know if I see it this year, but if we pushed it back a few years, yeah, I could see that scenario happening. But, timing's everything, Dave. You might have something, that very scenario may exactly happen in, say, 3 or 4 years, but something else might happen in 2 years that might change the outcome of that. It's just interesting how it plays. Like I tell the story all the time. And go back in history. Bear Bryant's an assistant at Vanderbilt, and he accepts the job to become the new head coach at Arkansas. And then 2 days later, Pearl Harbor breaks out, and then everything changes. Well, if he does that, how long does he stay at Arkansas? Does he still go back to his alma mater, Alabama? Does Frank Broyles ever coach at Arkansas? Does he coach somewhere? I mean, you can rewrite history on the what ifs. You go forward and you think things can happen. I mean, who knows? It's just, I say this all the time. What if Nick Saban, if they sign Drew Brees in Miami, does he ever leave the Dolphins and go to Alabama? And what does that do for Alabama? And there's just so many things that are fun to look back on or look ahead and think about. But one thing affects another, that affects another, and there. But for the grace of God, we don't know. The greatest one I remember is the John Wooden story. John Wooden played basketball at Purdue, was a Big Ten guy. He wanted the University of Minnesota job. And he had a deal, and they told him they would contact him on Thursday. Well, and he says, look, if I get the job, I'm gonna, I'll cancel this interview I got at UCLA. And well, they decided to hire him. But as it happens in February in Minneapolis, massive snowstorm. Of course, there's no cell phones. There's no internet. Western Union was shut down for 3 days. They got him a telegram, but it was too late. He had gone to UCLA. He had interviewed. He accepted the job. And after he accepted the job, he found out, hey, we want you at Minnesota. We've been trying to get in touch with you. He says that I can't go back on my word I gave to UCLA. What would have been there? And, it's just things like that. Just, you never know.
I had never heard that story. That's fantastic. For that type of insight in the college football world, in the pro football world, and recruiting as well, go to LandryFootball.com. Again, Craft Treats will make your pet more comfortable, and the link attached will make your wallet more happy. How about that? So Craft Treats, great for your pet with the minor cannabinoids that will be able to give them a little bit of relief during those storms, maybe car ride anxiety, whatever the case may be. So that's Craft Treats. Check them out. For Chris Landry, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.